Hey guys, going to talk about TNON. I didn't have shares of LIFW. Maybe that's a good thing. I could tell you for a fact I would have taken a couple losses on the way up um, on setups that I thought I had a good read on, but didn't have shares. Guess that's a good thing. TNON. I'll swing short this from the after hours pump, right? They did an after hours backside lower high squeeze, and it's pretty normal, especially in a weaker market, for these not to keep squeezing past high A day. A lot of these after hours squeezes swipe backside, especially when it's coming from really far below and fades, right? So um, I was gonna make a video on this, and then this action happened, and I had to stop making the video and trade it. Um, but I was short in the 160s, and I covered a little bit in the after hours, and then I swung it because I'm like, oh, it's going to give a gap down, the volume's going to be really weak, and it's just going to trade no volume, and it's going to go straight down, right? So I just had an alert at like 170, and I wasn't even looking at this um, really until this volume came in, and at that point, I didn't add to my position. Man, market's closed. I didn't add to my position. I was just watching, and the volume wasn't that impressive. I gave this like, bullish pop, and then I saw the higher low grind. I actually thought about shorting more in the 160s here. I thought this was just gonna break the trend line, trap retail, and then fade. Um, but my amazing broker trade zero's locate tool wasn't working. I guess that's a good thing because it ended up soaking. And I'm like, all right, we're starting to get like what's the bullish thesis, right? We're starting to get lower highs below high day. So 1.8 high day. We got this lower high from after hours, this lower high from this push, and now we're in this range. And I'm like, all right, like this type of move should really just fade. If you give like a random high volume, this went from 0 shares per minute to 350K. And if you're gonna just trap shorts and pull the bid, like it should just fade. They should just like or do an offering or something like that, right? And I'm like, if this rotates back up, past 170, I'm just gonna assume um, the trade's not gonna work, and I just put my risk there, and I got stopped out on this candle right here, and I was like, I'll just reassess the price action depending on what happens after I get stopped out, right? So remember, 1.8 is the high day. So we had 1.8 here. So this is 1.8. Just put an alert there so you can see. Oh, that doesn't work. Remember, this was our high day from Friday. And then we get a high day clear out. And usually I don't take a lot of high day clearouts unless I think A, the market is weak, which up to this point it was. It was quite weak. LIFW went crazy, but for the past ever since TPSC and all those trades, it's been weeks of pre-market fades, of market open fades, a lot of heaviness, a lot of weakness, and I like to take high day clearouts when I think um, they only have enough volume to target that level, right? Something like CLLS that did a high day clearout, pulled back 10% and then squeezed. Stuff like that tends to happen when the volume is really high, like 1 million, 2 million shares per minute. This was soaking at like 8,000 shares, 50,000 shares, and I'm like, all right, maybe they just swipe high day and pull it. So I actually got short, and then this little move happened, right? We got this little 1 minute flat top, these higher lows on the 1 minute 20, and then your big retail push, right? This candle above 1.8, 1.79, 1.8. I saw that on the book map. I saw this. I should show you. This is pretty interesting. They stacked the offer at 1.8, and we'll see. We see them. I don't know why my data always. I think the data resets at the end of the day. Market just closed 3 minutes ago. 1.8, this price action. You can see that they stacked the ask at 1.8. You get your big retail push. There's no buying up higher, and I noticed there's really no bids during this push. There's no bids down to 165. So I'm like, all right, if this push doesn't go, this offer gets eaten up and it starts to stall. And you can see after the big retail push, there's very little buying. Um, I just shorted, and I got the move I wanted, but I'm like, I told my Discord, I'm like, oh, they have some bids at 168, and they have some bids at 165. I was like, that 165 really, really needs to break, because there's always a chance that this is a high day clear out short trap. This could be a short trap that could squeeze, right? So in the Discord, which is you can find information down below in the description. I was telling people like I'm short this. I'm looking at 165. I'm also noticing. So you'll see here. You'll see the bids. Here's the bids at 168 I was talking about, and here's the bids at 165. I was like, this needs to break. I was like, this needs. And then we had a 11,000 shares and probably even more hit 165, and the ass didn't move. And not only that, if you look here, I noticed there's no orders between 170 and high day. 170 to 185 had 0 orders. So if you're wondering why does this candle aggressively just go through 10%, you know, um, have this like crazy 10% move straight up? It's because of how retail's position, including me, right, short, and how thin the order book. If you have shorts who are stuck in a thin book with no orders, no orders, no orders, then the moment the initiation starts, everyone is just going to get squeezed, right? So, I noticed when this was rotating, the only real orders were at 182 to 183, 184, and I just started getting out. I just started instantly getting out, and took a small loss, but that it was only about a 5 cent loss, right? Um, so we get a big squeeze. I'm like, okay, cool. Maybe this is a better short structure, right? Because now all the 1.8 shorts have gotten squeezed. You know, shorting this pattern, you get an up only squeeze, and a lot of times the best shorts come after up only squeezes of earlier shorts. I'm like, okay, but I still need um, some type of pattern, right? And I like to see the pullback, I like to see the structure, and I like to see, possible long trap initiations, right? So you get big up only, you get the pullback, and first thing I notice is this big aggressive move. And they had a bunch of orders stacked at 218s up here, which again we could see here. So they had 218 stacked, and I saw no bids following this up. Like, okay, let me get in the like I got a 213 average, not my full size because I was I thought I was actually waiting for a second push. I was hoping it would come back and push again. Instead, it just went straight down only. I'm like, all right, well, I have some shares. And then we have something that's usually very bearish here, where you have this big relative volume initiation off of support. So support's holding, shorts are waiting for it to crack, to VWAP, volume gets crazy low, and then a bunch of volume comes in, right? So you get green candles, green candles. I'm like, okay, cool. There's still that 218 bid, that 218 ask that I saw from earlier. Let me see if we get any type of secondary kind of retail push. So we get this push, get a small pullback, and then we get the second push. And this second push becomes very important because what often happens is you get retail chasing they see the volume come in, they chase the next push, and then it cracks and comes down, and then it breaks these support levels and then fades, right? So I added on this candle at 216s because it was stalling and I still saw that 218. So I'm like, cool, like now this support can break and it can fade to VWAP and it could be a nice trade. Kind of like faking out longs here, especially here. I thought after this it was done for sure, but then volume gets really low, and volume getting low at support can be scary because it's like essentially the way a lot of these long patterns work is they fake out retail on the strong patterns with the volume. They get attracted by the volume, they get attracted by the up, 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 up. You shake them out, it gets really, really, really grindy, and then you rotate it back up. But the way I trade, even I know this price action isn't ideal. Like, okay, it swiped, it should break two, the volume's getting really low. I really need the buying to not come in. It's got to go to two. It's got to crack two. It's got to go to VWAP. Um, and then it starts rotating back up here, and I'm just like, not good. Like these are two long trappy patterns, and now you're getting a third push, right? So, um, but my average was about 214, 215s. I saw some orders uh, up in the what is this? Oh, sorry guys, I had to make an edit. So I was saying that I was short at around 214, 215s on this candle, uh, and I noticed, okay, volume's getting really thin. It should just break $2. Let's go down. I'll put my risk up into 220s, and they ended up just thin soaking, which is usually not a big deal. Seeing the volume get this low, it's only a big deal if there's no more further selling and the stock starts to rotate upwards, which is what it did. But since I had a good average, I was like, let me just follow my sell rules, put my risk up here, high 220s. Actually, noticed on the book map there wasn't a whole lot of orders between 220 and 230, so that was a little concerning. But I was like, let me just keep my risk, and ended up just getting squeezed. So now I took two losses, right? I took two losses on. Yeah, I lost a little bit on my swing short, and then this hiding cloud short trap, and then here's actually this is really an example of how a lot of low floats move. Like they fake out retail, they shake them out, they fake out retail, they shake them out, and then they do the real long, right? So there's a lot of, even if a long is going to work on a lot of low floats, a lot of times you'll get very bearish looking price action that also consequently shakes out longs, and then you get the real long, and you never know what's going to happen. My general thinking is the higher something squeezes, the more likely you are to get a long trappy type move, right? The higher something goes up, you're going to get some crazy move that looks really strong that's eventually going to be weak, right? But in this case, I decided to short kind of down here. I realize now that 215 is kind of too far away from 260. You'll see the A plus short. The best shorts end up being right below high day, like, which is crazy. Like the stronger the move and the closer it gets to high day, the better the short often becomes, right? The farther away from high day and the less aggressive the move, um, the worse the short becomes, right? So there's a lot of counterintuitiveness to low floats. Still took it, like, but you make the reads you make. You take entries. You try to get the best average possible, and sometimes you take L's, right? So I'm like, all right, I lost twice. My general rule is if I lose three times, if something just keeps doing manip push, manip push, manip push, I'm like, you know what? Today's not my day on the ticker. So on this push, I thought was really interesting. So we got another squeeze. And then the first thing I noticed, which called out in the Discord, which information down below in the description, is there's a big hidden seller at 248, and you can actually see this on the book. Go to the top of the book. Here's 248s, 248, 248, 248, 248. There's this guy at 248 who's absorbing, and not to mention you had a bunch of orders at 249, especially 250 half dollar, which can be bullish. 2.5 could have squeezed, and there's very little orders up the 270s. It's a possibility, but like I said, the more something pushes, the less likely the further short traps are likely to keep just keep squeezing and keep going up. Um, so I'm like, okay, 248. That's an interesting. There's an interesting hidden seller at 248, and then we got a big pullback. I was like, well, I was looking at these candles to maybe break 240s. I really didn't see a whole lot, whether it was on the book. Um, in terms of like entries or reads, I just saw kind of a bunch of empty space. I saw a bunch of empty space on the upside. I'm like, oh, maybe they push a stock, into the 240s, and I can make some type of read. And they just pulled it back, and I was like, well, I can't really do anything right now on this pullback. I don't want to chase. In low floats, you don't chase lower highs and lower lows, right? You make the reads you make on the strong candles, and you try to trade price action that looks strong that you think is weak, right? You don't chase weakness, right? So we get down, and as you see here, the reason this squeeze happens here. So it's like, why does in low floats, why does this squeeze happen like this, and why does this become the short, right? Like, why is this a good short? So I ended up shorting this at 242s on this candle. I just shorted it, insta shorted it, because I remember that hidden seller. But if you look at the book, you can see the same thing, that there's no orders between like the initiation right here, 214 to 240. There's nothing there. There's the way low floats work on the order book is that the market maker kind of marks their levels. Like, we want this level, we want this level. In this moment, this algo wants this level. You can see them throwing up bids. They're catching. The reason they throw up these bids is because they want to catch. They want to catch the selling at key. They throw up to catch the selling, right? That's what they're doing, right? So, and I'm just like, okay. And if you're chasing down here, say if you're shorting 215s, there's no orders up to 240. You have 10% risk and even more uh, with no orders to help push the stock down, right? So that's why, say with LAFW, you get these aggressive moves that are like 10, 15% moves in 1 minute. Um, and a lot of that is just because the market maker's initiating either, they're getting longs to chase or they're squeezing shorts. Through a thin order book, right? So it's just going straight up. Um, and one thing I noticed was interesting is they had this bid at this ask at 240, and they pulled it before again hitting this 280, 240, 248 guy up here um, who was there from earlier. So I was like, all right. I was like, they pulled this ask, it squeezed into the 240s. If this doesn't immediately go, if this has any type of low volume pullback, I am instantly shorting this, because this is like, if you want to know how like low float stocks top, like this is how they top, man. This is just some like, it's like some ridiculous aggressive move through that 240, which was never broken over here, right? And then the move's over, right? It already squeezed, you know, one time, two times, three times. A lot of times I'm counting structures, right? I'm counting how many structures has the stock traded. This is once, you could even say this is the first structure, but it's like, one, high day, the initial initiation, the high day clear out short trap. This insane move, this is like, when the market gets stronger, you really do start to see like 2, 3, 4, 5 pushes. Um, and then as the market gets weaker, like things will go from 3 or 4 pushes to 2 or 3, 2 to 3 to 1 or 2, and then suddenly you start getting pre-market gaps that can't even push, right? So it's like the ebb and flow of the low float market. But yeah, I saw this move, and I was like, "This is my last trade." I told my Discord, "I'm like, guys, I'm shorting 240s. Like, if this doesn't work, I am just, I'm just out." And up to this point, I took about 15, 20 cents in losses on the way up. I short 240s, and it worked perfectly. Like, I got the low volume pullback. We got these weak bounces that, I was like, okay, if they soak this bounce and push, then I'm like, I'm out. And then I love that this cracked. I'm like, good. Like, I saw this crack right here. I'm like, trade's working, right? I can relax. This is a great long trap. It's already pushed 3, 4 times, um, and I can hold. And I just pretty much held into the 180s, and then I was holding for 160s, but I didn't get 160s. I'm still holding some. Hopefully after hours, they gave this little move. Hopefully it just goes down and fade. Maybe I'll make an LIFW video really fast just because I think people might want to hear stuff about it. But I didn't trade it, so it's hard to, me to make a lot of commentary when I didn't have position. When you're not invested in positions and you're just like looking at a chart, it's a little different. But I guess I can make a short video on it. But um, yeah, I guess a lot of shorts got saved by not having shares today, and some shorts did have shares, and they took some L's on the way up. Sucks to hear. But yeah, TNON, reverse split pump, squeezed a lot higher than I thought, especially on this push. I really thought this structure would fail. But But luckily got a good low float short right up here, um, and made it back all the losses and more. So hope that was a good one. See you guys.